Hello, hello. So I dropped this into the chat, but if anybody notices that, the notes are significantly better than I usually do. Let's get them up on the screen. So today and yesterday, the notes are much more complete and much better checked than I usually manage. And unsurprisingly, that's because we've had our technical expert, Etta, helping out with the notes this week, which thank you, Etta. It is a very, very useful prod for me to take better notes. And for you all out there in, it would have said TV land a long time ago, but out in computer streaming land, a really, really nice sort of contrast between, hey, this is how Jess takes notes, which might not be how you take notes and might not be how you want to take notes. Whereas if I was studying, I'd want to maybe study from Edda's over mine. So it is day 2 of accessibility and accessibility. No, no, no. It's day 2 of our focus on accessibility. The same way where we focused on semantic HTML, but we're going to keep writing and keep thinking about semantic HTML as we go. We're going to focus really, really hard on accessibility fundamentals this week, but we're going to keep thinking about them and keep building our websites around these principles. Excitingly, perfectly, beautifully, a lot of the concepts and a lot of the approaches we take in semantic HTML. So, semantic, remember, we're writing HTML elements with meaning that carry a semantic meaning. Those often are significantly better for accessibility. Somebody who's not me, because I talk too much, can somebody give me sort of your own definition of what is accessibility? What is accessibility more broadly? Or what is accessibility as it relates to web development and web design? Yeah. While we wait for y'all to get a second to catch up, because there's always a lag, I'm going to start looking at our instructor notes. Today, we are specifically looking at fundamental concepts for accessibility, looking at forms and tables. So let's look at tables first. Remember back in the day, and back in the day is a week and a half ago, when we talked about the difference between presentational and semantic HTML. And I hope I mentioned that a long, long time ago when the web was new, it was pretty common to use tables for layout. It wasn't accessible. And there were a lot fewer accessibility tools. It was just a real jerk way to do things. But the web was new and accessibility grew with the web, which I've been very excited to see. We are never, 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 never going to use tables to adjust the layout of our website. We are only going to use tables in HTML because we want to communicate data in a structured way. Mel saying, hey, we can think about accessibility as providing the structure to have our users access information on our websites with different types of technologies. I really, really like this. Uladil. Accessibility is any kind of effort. Ooh, so the practice, the effort. I like this because this suggests like an ongoing, like not necessarily a march. That sounds a bit grim, but a dance. Two, increase the quality of life and equitable outcomes for everyone. Yeah, and that means we're talking about the web. Here, those equitable outcomes are folks can use the poor principles on your page. Gosh, I'm not going to look at my notes. So the P in poor is they can perceive the information on your web page. They're able to either visually see it because you've got good contrast, or use a screen reader that has audio output, or use a screen reader that has braille output. They're able to, what's the O, is operate, isn't it? Where they're able to get around and do the things on your website. Let's go back and look at our old notes, huh? Where are we? Who are we? It is a little embarrassing that I've forgotten what the U is, and the U is going to be understandable. Thank you. That when we manage to make our information on our website perceivable, they can tell what's on it, operable, that they can use it, that they can also understand the information, and One thing that I really, really love, I love all of these principles, but one thing that's really, really nice is robust. And that means making our HTML, writing this in solid semantic ways that are future proof so that even when browsers are different and the world is different, our websites, much like us, will persist. I mean, I hope they'll persist. We come all the way up, 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 up. Fantastic. Oh, Matthew's saying, hey, we could think about accessibility as empathy in practice. In practice, I really like this as practice. So, hey, having empathy for other people, understanding folks have different needs, great, fantastic. But applying this in functional practice. And Fi's like, hey, this is a really specific one. I love this. Saying, hey, accessibility means the designing and building websites so that everyone can use them. This can be people with different disabilities, like visual impairments or hearing loss or motor skills, but really, and Prambah's got my back, accessibility means something that everyone can access and use, regardless of how they're doing in the world, their disability status, and even stuff like linguistic and connection status is a little bit of a stretch. It's not always included in accessibility, but I like to. Yo, I love this. Everything's fine. So the big thing, we're going to pop back to these notes because they're really good, is that when we're using tables, it's never for presentational reasons. It's because the information in that table is being offered in a way that's structured where the table information has a relationship with each other. And that seems weird. We'll look at some table examples. It'll feel less weird. So, because we want to only use tables when there's a semantic reason for this data restructuring tables, love it, love it. We're already doing a pretty good job for accessibility. We're not making this harder. But we also need to go ahead and not just use tables when it's only appropriate, but still structuring our HTML for tables in a way that keeps accessibility in mind. One thing we can do is remember when we looked at caption, fig caption? Yeah, that you can have a figure and a caption associated with it to sort of let the user see, hey, here's what this figure's about. We can do this for tables as well. We can have a caption element for our tables to say, hey, if you're using a screen reader, for example, there's a ton of information on this table. How about I give you a caption, which will give you like a little taster for, look, here is what this table's about. Maybe you don't even need this. Maybe this is not relevant. So here we've got an example of the table element starting. Love it. And then right up at the top, we're saying, cool, we're going to start this table. We're going to create a caption element and say, hey, this is what's going on. This is what this table's about, just in case you wanted that extra hint. Just like if you've seen spreadsheets and you've got a header across the top, sort of telling you what the different fields are, we can add headers to our tables. Headers are usually on the top row or the the first row and the first column. And they describe the type of data in the row or column. And we could use the TH element to describe the table header. And this can be kind of difficult because we use the TH element both to set the column headers and to set the row headers. You might be saying, oh, should it be CH for the column headers and RH for the row headers? Nah, it's cool. We're going to go ahead and try to use the exact same element, but we're going to chuck it in the appropriate space. So here, we've got the start of our table. Y'all, this puts me to shame when Etta does the notes. Y'all got these like actually written in code blocks. Ooh. Next year, I'm not going to do the boot camp at all. I'm just going to make Etta do it. I would never. I'm too selfish. So here on line 1, we've got our table element starting. That feels okay. Line 2, we've got our caption. We're saying, hey, here's what's happening with my books. Here's what this table's about. Here we've got the table head. Okay, so this is sort of a header row of what's going across. Okay. And in this head, we've got a row. So, okay, I'm okay so far. The header, just like the header of your website. Oh, sorry. I'm terribly sorry. So the table, we've got our caption, we've got the head, just like the header of our website might have the information up at the top. The table head is going to have the similar types of information. And now we've got our column headers. We've got a TH for the title. And from the caption, we're going to be looking at books I have. Fantastic. So I think these columns under the first column with the header of table, or with the table header of title, I think we're going to see the titles of all of these books. Okay, okay. The second column header designated by the table table header. hmm, that's it. We say the table header. I'm gonna check. Table header. Thank you. I just grabbed the MDN link. MDN sort of like, yeah, back when web search worked a little better, I used to call MDN the sort of Google of web development. Now now it's the Wikipedia. It still works. It's holding that information. We've got a table header. So this column header will have our author. So the second column under all that will be the author. The third one will be the published date. And then down here, we've closed our table head. Not a problem. We've got this. We've got this. And now we've got the body of our table. So we're starting our first row. And we have a row header here as well. Stunning. So we're giving a lot of semantic clues to someone using assistive technology to say, hey, even before you start perceiving, sort of start sorting through the information in this table, just as a heads up, this caption is going to tell you what we're going to do. This is all about my books. Then we've got the column headers here to say, hey, just in case you want to focus on any of these individual ones, this first column is going to be the title. The second one, specified by the title header, the column header, using the table header element, is going to say the author, then the published date. Then as we start the body of this table, we've got another table header to say, hey, here's the title. Here's what this row is about. And we've got, I'm reminding myself, is this the same as the example we're using? It's not. All right. I'm taking a wild guess that these might actually be books on one of our instructors' shelves. Anna, you're in the chat. Confirm, these are books you had behind you on your bookshelf, huh? We've got collection fictions. That's going to come in on the first row. We've got the author, Jorge Luis Borges. And then we've got, is that the publication date? 1999? That's ages. That's right. Oh, fantastic. Okay, so we've got a really good example. Also, one thing that's really, really nice. So far, we've just got a really well-formed table, good semantic structure. But what we've added, which is both great for semantics and communicating the extra information, and for accessibility, is we were careful to use those captions and careful to set those table headers appropriately. We can also use the scope attribute to show if a header is a row header or a column header. Yeah. So here's our table header element, which is our column header based on where it's placed. And here we're being really explicit to say, hey, if someone's using assistive technology, or if there's sort of a bot coming and looking at this page, here's a table header. And just so you know, just we've got that, this is a column header. This is a column. All right. And here we do the exact same thing with the table header and the body for the rows. So, hey, we've got a row header using this table header element. Very, very chill. Scope has four possible values, but really the ones you're going to use almost all the time are row and column. Generally, you're going to say, hey, this table header element, it applies to the row. Or, hey, this table header element applies to the column. Row group and column group might be when a column or row spans multiple spells. Is row group when it's multiple cells? Let me remind myself. Group of cells. Cool. Yep. Row group is when you're setting the scope to say, hey, this header applies to this row, but also can apply to other cells or rows. Not a problem. So we do want to make sure. So we want to add really good structured context, but we don't want to add tons and tons of extra information that actually winds up to be distracting. So making your tables too complex and too fancy and that's really visually distracting a lot of the time. And a lot of screen readers struggle with tables, especially with more complex structures. It's also really nice to avoid defining cell height and using fixed values for cell width. We could use relative percentages for this so that users will be able to adjust the text size. And you might be saying, Jess, how can we use relative values? Maybe relative units of measurement and instead of absolute units of measurement in order to set sizes for our elements. I'm going to let y'all guess because we have not studied this at all so far, but you've heard me say constantly, soon we'll learn how to do this with blah. So we talked a bit about tables and accessibility. We're going to talk for a little bit about forms and accessibility. And I am extremely slow with forms. So we're going to have a slow, nice little time. Actually, folks who are here and live, what's been the hardest? So if like nothing has been hard so far, love it, love it. This is great for you. But out of the stuff we've worked with so far, what's been the hardest or the easiest for you? For me, I always have to go and look things up with forms quite a bit. So with forms, it's really tempting to say, hey, I have a form. I have a form element. You need it to have your form. And my form has an ID. If my form has an ID, why do I also need a label? And we talked about this when we first talked about forms, but just to reiterate, we want to look at adding labels for adding that extra semantic context, which is really useful in accessibility. Oh, we've got the question like, hey, when I asked what's the most difficult so far, what do I mean for HTML fundamentals or accessibility specifically? Yeah, so of all the stuff we've studied in the last 3.25 weeks, is there anything that's been really hard or anything that's been really easy for y'all? I'm trying to make myself feel. Oh, I've got someone saying like, hey, do you know what? Forms actually the most confusing with the input attributes. I didn't just ask for what y'all are struggling with to validate that forms are hard for everyone, not just forms are hard for many people, not just me. But thank you for validating that with me. So we should associate a label with the input using the for attribute wherever possible. Let's take a look at this. So this is a label for name, and the name is associated with the ID. This feels really reductive, but this is us sort of stapling these two things together. We're saying, hey, this label where it says your name is going to give a visual indicator for folks who are perceiving this data visually. But for folks who are using different assistive technologies or for robots looking at your work, being able to staple that semantic meaning of, hey, your name, when we're talking about this label, we're talking about the ID here for this input. Implicit association, you can do it, it's possible. So explicit association is here when we say the label for this ID. Implicit association can be when we nest the input element inside the label. And one thing I really like in tech is you'll get little catchphrases that people say again and again. And one thing that I often sigh to myself, and when learners make me say this, I'm especially delighted, is the concept of something being technically correct. You're like, okay, that's technically correct. It's going to work, but technically correct is not always the way we want to do things. Implicit association, where we nest the input element inside the label element, is technically correct. It'll work. Your form will work, but a lot of browsers and screen readers support implicit association, but they don't always do it as well. So, yeah, when the input is focused, the screen readers will announce the label. We know that there's two ways to do this. Explicit, where you've got the label for connect and using the for attribute to connect it to the ID. And we know that this is going to be just significantly more accessible. Why not type one more little tiny attribute and do it the more accessible way? We've got folks saying, hey, when they first did forms, those were hard as well. Oh, look, exactly that. Technically correct, but in practice, we don't want to do it. Cool. That's true. So, do you know what I used to be a teacher as well, and yeah, that is very, very much the okay, y'all. This is a way to get this done, but not always the way we want to do it. So we're going to keep bopping along. Using associated labels also improves search engine optimization because it's not just easier for humans using your web page with the assistance of machines, it's also easier for machines coming to read your web page. Let's go ahead and we're going to bop into, oh gosh, we are going to bop over here and we are going to slowly and peacefully take a look at building some of this out. And some of this is going to feel super duper repetitive. So if I could ask y'all for a favor, go ahead and be like, go, go, go. So please, it's a weird thing to ask the internet. It is such a delight to have a learner community who's so chill because I'm actually going to ask you to heckle me. So I'm going to go pretty fast, but be like, wait, 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 go back. What's this? As soon as I go a little bit too fast. Yeah. So we're going to build this, and it's a workshop, so it's kind of step by step. We're not going to be as creative. We're going to look after this at an assignment where y'all are going to be asked to be a bit more creative. At debugging, I think debugging is creative, but I'm a sicko. We're going to build an H1 element. Oh my, oh, heck, heck, heck. I'm actually going to type this in the text box. And while I'm doing this, can anyone who is not me remind me how many H1s is it best practice to have on page? Not that you're not allowed to, but oh, Sunny's like, hey, is it best to use implicit along explicit association as long as you have the for? Oh, yeah, you absolutely can. This will totally work. I'd want to do a little research on the screen reader, output and whether or not WCAG and MDN recommend this. This would work. I'm so sorry that we've got a backstage technical expert. Edit, can you see if either the W3C docs or MDN mention this specifically while I bop along? Sorry, this is a super good question. I think yes, but because I'm lightly rubbish with forums, I always like to triple check. Also, do you know what's really nice? Is looking stuff up is free. Oh gosh, I know that I have been, so I'm making a table element, and inside this table element, I'm going to hit a caption element. I know I've been really pushing y'all with but really trying to indoctrinate y'all with my sort of approach to web development. Say, hey, a lot of this is philosophical, a lot of this is incremental practice. We want to experiment and have a silly little time. If I could give you just, I know trying to give people advice they didn't ask for is often unfair, but I'm going to start a T head element. And this is going to be the head of the head section, ooh, heck, of my table. Yeah, I understand that giving folks advice they didn't ask for is a lot like giving somebody a free sofa. Sometimes you really needed a sofa, but usually giving people advice they didn't ask for is a bit like, what am I going to do with this sofa? But if I could give you one teeny tiny advice that I'd love if it was useful for you, is the biggest skill. Oop, actually, here's a little PSA, which is, hey, if you've got the money and if you've got the time, Free Code Camp, who supplies our curricula, is a registered nonprofit. Don't spend money you don't have, but donating to them if you do have the money and if you found their work helpful is a really kind thing to do. But wait, I keep dancing around it. The advice I want to give you, which I think is the most powerful skill I've ever learned, is we're going to do a table head element. That if you get really chilled out about asking questions, and if you get really chilled out about being wrong, and this is not good advice for everyone. So folks who are underrepresented in different spaces, they're like, oh, hey, I didn't get this. What does this mean? Can often mean folks look down on you or see you as more junior. But especially for folks who are well represented, I'm making these table headers. I've got track A, B, and C. Being able to ask out loud, hey, what's this about? What are we doing here? Just getting really comfortable with, oh, I should have 4 of them. Oh, thank you. Getting really comfortable with taking a break to ask or stopping to look things up can be absolutely life-changing. When I got to be, never mind how old, when I got to be a certain age, I kind of stopped worrying about looking silly, and it made things so much easier. Ah, you can tell that this is Edda because this is very, very well researched. The question was, can we use explicit association and implicit? And MDN, which is the Wikipedia of web development, says, hell yeah. MDN recommends using explicit association, but you can do both at the same time. So have your input element nested within your label element with a for attribute assigned. You can do both for maximum compatibility, which just sounds hardcore and cool. Thank you very much, Edna. We're going to keep bopping along. Cool. We're going to set our scope. So for all of our TH elements, because this is in the head, these are the columns, we're going to set the scope attribute to column. I'm going to copy and paste this because y'all don't need to see me try and type this 3 times. But yeah, the big thing, if I was trying to sell you anything, is that things don't have to be as hard as they are, and getting really, really chill with, hey, maybe I need to look this up. Hey, maybe I need to ask a question is a superpower that will just chill you out. So we're going to start adding a table body where we're going to have really I was going to say the meat of our table, but that's kind of weird. This feels a lot like the body element in our HTML. In here, I'm going to set a TR. Okay, so here, table row. I'm going to check our code. Everything continues to be fine. Here, we're going to set another table heading. And we know from where this is placed. So here we're in the body of our table. We're inside our row element. So when I set this table heading, I know as the person writing this code, hey, this is going to be a row heading. Yeah. Oh, and we're going to do 3 of those. Oh, the table heading element has a text of 9 a.m. Okay. Thank you. And then under that, 3 table data elements. We can do this. And I'm going to copy and paste these because I love to be lazy. 9 a.m. is the keynote on tech futures. Do you know what? I am shamelessly mean. One of my favorite things to do is to be mean to people who are smarter than me. Do you know Edda gave a conference talk last year, which was really, really good. Cool, we've got these. I bet this is going to go just fine. See, this is why y'all should never volunteer to help out with the boot camp because I'm relentlessly embarrassing. Here for this table header. Oop. I'm going to spell everything wrong. We're going to set the scope to row. Not a problem. I think that is just fine. We're going to keep bopping. All right, we're going to do another row. So table row. And this feels a little repetitive. Oh, can anybody guess why we might be doing the same things again and again in these exercises? Actually, do you know what? This does feel a little repetitive. We're going to go super duper fast, but then in future works, we're going to do less of the repetitive bits, yeah? Here, instead of going back and doing these one at a time, I've created a table row. I'm creating a table header. What I want to make sure I'm doing this time is, as I'm first writing this table header, as I'm first doing the opening tag of my table header element, I'm going to set the scope right there. I'm going to start building this into my muscle memory to say, hey, when I start a TH element, I'm going to add that scope right there. Because there's a lot of lies in development, and there's a lot of lies in web development. But I find that the most persistent lie for me is going back and saying, I'm going to come back and fix this later. Like whenever I set myself a little to do, that is almost always a very ambitious lie. Absolutely. So I was like, hey, why might we be doing this again and again? Muscle memory. So muscle memory, so getting so your hands just do it automatically. But this is really, really exciting because, and I learned this from, I gave a talk with Edda. I might be embarrassing and grab the video link later. But there's apparently two different types of knowledge. There's a sort of knowing facts and memorization. Thank you. We've dropped that into the chat. And then there's this idea like procedural knowledge, this muscle memory, being able to do things that you've just got sort of wedded into your consciousness, like ride a bike or make sure you always include your scope in your table header. Let's do one more of these. We've got our table data elements. And here, the first one, heck. Oh gosh, I am jumping around. I forgot that the table header needs content. And this is going to be showing what's going on in the 10 a.m. slot. And here, I'm going to, excuse me, instructions. I'm going to dismiss you briefly. Let's take a look at what the code and our data look like side by side. Here, we've got a table, and we've got data where it makes sense for us to have a table. We've got the caption of a schedule by track and time. So somebody either visually looking at this page or using assistive technology is going to get a summary of what we're doing in this table right away. We've got our column headers with the scope set. And these are also visually different. If we wanted to change how these look, we would do it with, we do it with CSS. We've got a column header for the time, track A and B and C. So what's going to be in the different rooms of this conference. And then we've got these row headers at 9 a.m. Here's what's going to be in track A, track B, and track C. All right. Oh, wait, heck, where am I? Who am I? Eulidel makes a solid point to say, okay, so sure, muscle memory, let's try this again and again, but we're going to be real careful too, to make sure we're not doing so much of this so we're not going to get repetitive strain injuries. So, and we've got somebody making a point as well that like, actually, do you know what? The semantic structure on this is quite good. We've got a lot of hints to folks using assistive technologies. but the actual like design of this table, of this web page, not great. It's not pretty. We'll get the CSS skills soon, I promise. Cool. Nope. I love y'all and I want y'all to be real supported. But I'm going to stop here because these muscle memory, do it again and again and again tasks. And I want to make sure that I'm not sort of doing too much homework for you. Oh, we've got somebody just saying that the text looks a little fuzzy on screen. If other folks are having a problem with this, can you let me know? And helpfully, I will also tab back here to our notes where we've got much, much bigger text. If that still looks fuzzy, I'm going to be concerned about my connection. And thank you all for being so patient. All right, we've got a debugging exercise that we're going to start breaking down together. But then, because I am the meanest possible instructor, I'm going to ask you to finish solo. So it was looking a bit fuzzy in the table view. We were, let me come back here. Yeah, actually, this might be a solid point. I don't know if it's fuzzy with all of this text bunched together. The font choice doesn't feel very accessible. So like the ability to visually parse all of this information, yeah, it doesn't feel like very accessible design. Christina's got my back. Christina's like, wait. Definitely agree, both with Matthew and and Euladil that like, hey, this table looks like a mess, but we are absolutely going to come back and we're going to keep doing tables and we're going to do tables with CSS and hopefully make them look a little bit less brutal. So, hop. I'm going to hop back where I go. This, I have asked all of you because you are going to be the web developers and web designers and folks making your own silly little websites or serious little websites. And you're going to be the ones out there doing things the right way. Y'all are always going to apply semantic principles. Y'all are always going to build accessible websites and test for them. But this debugging reflects sort of a real world problem. So even though y'all are always going to do this right, a lot of web developers have gotten in the habit of, I'm just going to make this, or sometimes I'm just going to vibe code this. And then having to go back afterwards and saying, well, here's my code, make it accessible, is both way more time and way more work than I sound like such an old duffer. Building an accessible web experience and then having to go back and debug it to make it accessible is always going to take you more time and it's always going to be more heartache. But it happens a lot. And here, which we're going to talk through together and break down, is going to give us a bit of an idea of what that feels like. So the premise behind this lab is we've got a local charity. We don't have any information about our charity. So y'all can go ahead and make up the charity of your dreams that this donation form is for. So this local charity has built a donation form on its website. But even though this is charity, oh gosh, can somebody give me an example? This charity is a do you know what? I was just sending a friend a job link for a tech job at the Dogs Trust, like a puppy saving charity. We'll just imagine it's the Dogs Trust. So they've built this donation form. It's not that complicated. Oh, Paul's like, hey, let's imagine this is a food bank. That's well relevant these days. Nice. But they haven't made it super accessible. They're trying to do the right thing, and you have got the accessibility skills to help them out. So we're going to go ahead and look at this and just break down the problems. And I'm going to ask you to go ahead and finish this solo. So, and I see a couple of questions, and I'm going to grab those before we talk about these. And um, then if anybody has questions as we go, and it doesn't have to be specifically about accessibility in tables, y'all can send me anything in the world. Oh, not anything in the world, anything marginally relevant that meets the code of conduct and is polite. Mella's like, hey, if I'm a user using a screen reader, would the screen reader go ahead and read all the headers first So the users can tab from one to the other. Generally, yes. So screen readers are many screen readers are highly configurable, and users can go ahead and say, "Hey, when you hit a table, tell me what the headers are first. I just wanna be able to navigate and tab around." And this is a really, really good reason to specify the scope of rows and columns because you can, as a screen reader, you can say, "Hey, as a screen reader user," I don't think the screen readers themselves say much, unless they're the text to speech kind. A screen reader user can say, "Hey, I want to see what all of these columns are about before getting the information from the rest of the table, or I want to see what all these rows are about. So tell me about these headers first." And Sunny's like, "Hey, I remember this BR element. Can we use it? One of the CSS workshops, which we'll do soon, it makes you turn the inputs and labels into block displays. And don't worry if y'all haven't heard this. But can you use BR, the what is the BR element used to be called the break element. Oh, good. It still is. It's called the line break element now. Whew. So this is a holdover from presentational HTML where you would use these elements literally to arrange things on your website, often in addition to tables, because CSS didn't exist as a tool for layout. And Sunny's like, "Hey, can we use this in order to turn block displays to put stuff in a separate line?" It would be technically correct. It would often result in your elements being on separate lines, but using the break element like the line break element like this, it still feels very much like a holdover from presentational HTML. It would probably on men so it wouldn't be very responsive. Different screen sizes would get you really different experiences. It would look and feel very different for different types of users, but also it's just sort of a clunky way to do it. You could use the break line element to start on a new line, but when we get into CSS, we're going to look at different ways to position this. If you say, "Hey, I really want to make sure that different elements are on different lines," turning them into block displays, we can specify that they're on new lines. And we're going to learn about CSS Grid and Flexbox, which are two really specific ways to sort of draw a blueprint of where you want stuff to sit on your website, and then use CSS to nail stuff down into that blueprint. So technically correct, but yeah. Oh, this is a much better way to say it. Ed is like, "Hey, hey, hey. MDN doesn't recommend using the line break element because it's not great for accessibility. Thank you very much." So let's start breaking this down, and then we will go and have the chillest possible time. One thing that I do want to make sure to remind you all about is there's no obligation. Everything's always available asynchronously afterwards. But if you are available a couple of hours after our regularly scheduled, regularly scheduled lesson stream, I'm really, really excited because we're going to have Sarah Joy coming to talk to us about the whimsy and delight of making your websites accessible. So I saw this talk online. Have you heard the term hope punk? Um, it's sort of this like aesthetic that I find especially valuable in 2026. So it's a really hopeful talk. It's a really useful talk, and that's going to be tomorrow, 4.5 hours after the start of our regularly scheduled stream time. So folks further to the east of me, yes, folks further to the east of me, that might be super, super late for y'all. For folks further to the west, where you're like, "Hey, those streams are at a weird time," this might be a real good guest session. And this will be available offline as well. So we just got a quick little thing, but a quick little thing that's a lot of work. And I am not going to do y'all's work for you. We're going to talk through the user stories. We're going to take a look at our tests. We're going to take a look at our code. And then I'm going to abandon you asking you to do it yourself. We've got 5 different user stories, and some of these feel pretty quick. So the input elements are void elements. Can somebody remind me what a void element? Oh, can somebody? That's too easy because the documentation tells you. Can somebody give me an example of another void element, please? So a void element is an element where you don't need an opening and closing tag. Here, these input elements, I'm gonna come in here, have been giving a closing tag. The first thing y'all are going to want to do is go through and delete them. You can add the closing slash to your void element here. Some people do, some people don't. The second user story is we're going to add label elements. Just like we talked about, you're going to add label elements. And then I bet you $1. Yep, yep, yep. I used to carry a US dollar in my wallet specifically so if anybody challenged me, I love to say, I'll bet you $1, blah, blah. And I used to be able to say, no, I have $1 right here until I lost one of those bets and had to give it up. So when I saw this label element, I thought, I will bet you $1 they're going to ask us to use the for attribute. And we're going to ignore the email address for a minute. But here it's saying, hey, 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 let's go ahead and make sure that label element has a for attribute that matches the ID of the ID attribute on the input element it's connected to. User story 3, to bounce back up. Right now, we have got the input type of text, but semantic HTML, we always want to use the most specific, most precise HTML we can. And we've got an input type for email. Stunning, perfect, beautiful. And boop, 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 we're going to add the required attribute to the text, email, and number field inputs, but not the checkboxes and not the submit button, like making the submit button required. Seems weird and wouldn't work. And we're just going to say, hey, if somebody's sending us this form, we're not going to let them send us this form until they've put some kind of something, some kind of content in the text input fields, the email input field or fields, and the number input fields. And here, these tests are going to walk us through testing for the different user stories. And they should give us quite a bit of feedback as we go. I am going to come back. I've got a couple questions. Gosh, sorry. I asked, hey, what's another example of a void element? And we've got, is it Riave? We've got Riave Chico said, the image tag, come on, the image, we learned that like week 1, that is the old school one. We've got the meta tag. Yeah, the meta tag. Okay, somebody's saying maybe the anchor tag. I think we need to, I'm pretty sure we need to we have a closing tag for our anchor tag because we often have anchor text in there. We need to have something that people can click on. We've got somebody else saying image. Zenith, who is just absolutely doing their homework and a half, is like, hey, both the meta and image elements are examples of void elements. Here we've got the meta. Oh gosh, that's an interesting one. I have not seen this element referenced in a extensive amount of time. The HR element is like what are they calling it now? The horizontal rule element. It literally draws a line on like to sort of conceptually separate paragraph level elements thematically. This was a blast from the past. Okay, so this is saying the break element, the line break element, which y'all have lightly encouraged us not to use, is indeed a void element. You're not wrong. The link element, the base element. Oh yeah, of course. So yeah, the link element. So the anchor element is not a void element. The link elements that do have the ref are indeed void. Ooh. Some of y'all were absolutely getting extra credit in real class, huh? This is a real class. It's just chiller. There's no way to fail. The declarative element at the top of all of your HTML files when you just start part of that boilerplate, the doc type HTML, that is avoidable. Heck yes, it is. Ooh, yeah, everything stunning. Oh, and Garrett's saying like Garrett uses the HR to separate output from scripts. Like we'll talk about the terminal later on. So we've got this guest session. I'll jump around a little bit. I love to jump around a little bit. Let's look at what I'm going to ask you to um, sort as solo work. When I say before tomorrow, so we're just going to take a deep breath and swoop all the way up. When I say I'm assigning you, y'all are grown, there's no hard deadlines. What I mean is you're going to get the most out of tomorrow's session if you do this first. Oh, I got really excited because I thought she might still be on the cat tree. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about Aria. So I'm so excited that I'm going to be your instructor tomorrow when we talk about Aria, and I'll make sure to put some cat treats in my pocket so we can like hold up the actual the my Aria. We're going to talk about. Please read what is Aria. What are Aria roles? What are Aria roles? What about Aria label and Aria labeled by? I love Aria hidden. So you can do a bunch of silly, cute things with your HTML. You can do a bunch of silly, cute, decorative things with CSS. And a lot of them are kind of jerk moves for folks using screen readers. Sometimes you want to say, I want all of this on my website, but do you know what? I want to use these ARIA attributes to mean like, hey, go ahead and present different kinds of information to different kinds of users because some of this information is decorative or distracting or contradictory. We're going to talk about ARIA described by and what it does. And if you all could get through as many of the steps of build an accessible audio controller on your own as possible, please, please, please take notes about what's new and what's stressful or what you don't get or what you love. I always have a little bit of a tough time with audio, and y'all, it is so okay if we have different things we're good at and different things we're not good at. So tomorrow we're going to do the accessibility part 3, focus on ARIA. Love to focus on ARIA. But I'm so, so excited about the session because like who doesn't want, it's a little bit ridiculous. That's not nice. When I say ridiculous, it's a little bit too perfect. We've got Sarah coming to talk to us about the whimsy of building accessible websites and accessible experiences. And her name is Sarah Joy. How much do we love that? That's charming. If you can't see us catch it live, also not a problem. Okay. So, gonna go ahead and very lovingly suggest that if it's first thing in the morning, it might be a real nice time to stretch and look out at the sunshine and think about your day. Just get a little bit of a second to relax. If it's the afternoon, I'm going to lovingly suggest that you have the easiest possible day. Yeah, if it's afternoon, some of your day is already done. Let's just get through the rest of it. And I'm not your boss, I'm not your mama, and I can't tell you what to do, but if it is very late at night where you are, please, please, please consider getting some rest if you can. I will see all of you tomorrow. I will apologize in advance because I'm going to be relentlessly excited about Aria. And I will try and make sure I bring Aria for a brief guest appearance. Thank you all so much. And I love y'all being so kind to each other in the chat. I'll see you tomorrow.